All right, let's go to the women's club. And
The women's club.
yeah, well, I know.
Forget. No, it's not the women's club. It is the women's club now, and I don't. Originally, it was the second Belk's department store.
Yeah,
It was called the New York Racket. Is that
it was
right?
in New York. But let me tell a little story there about William Henry Belk. When he wanted to buy a store in Monroe, he had dreams of making a Belk store, Belk Brothers. He had $750. That sounds small today, but back then it was a lot. And he borrowed $500 from a woman named Mary Jane Walker McCain that lived out near 200. They were kind of prominent, had a little money. He borrowed $500 from her, and that's how he started Belk as we know it today. And they opened the store then here, and his cousin, uncle, one of his relatives, Ralph Belk, ran.
Oh, yeah,
it was a Belk Brothers.
yeah.
All right, help me out, Terry. It's not considered one of the Belk stores, is it?
No.
See, Belk's in Monroe will forever be number one. If you look, I used to work at Belk's. I did windows up there, so I know. Their tickets and things, they used to have like number one. It has Belk's. They're number one. And everything else is 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 60 or whatever. But this one never became number 2, and I don't know why. Unless it's because Ralph ran it and he didn't. I don't know. But it was part of the Belks. And
When did that close down?
1936, is that about right?
30-something.
Something like that. But there's people that can tell you, and most of them are gone now, about working in the store. And they would have days when they would have special sales. And they would open the windows upstairs, and people would come and gather, and they would toss things out the window, and people would catch them, and they would have an awesome sale on them, pillowcases for 5 cents or something. And Haskell Ergel's sister, Margaret, talked about getting a pair of boots there, and they fit her. She got a pair of boots from Bell's from one of those sales. And she said they fit her, and but it was. We remember it a little different.
Yeah, it was after Belk's. It was various incarnations over the years, but from 1947, I think, until 1965, it was Mr. Henry Gamble's drugstore. Now that's Patsy McGee's father.
Gay Dillard's grandfather. Brett's grandfather.
Gay Dillard's grandfather. Mr. Henry Gamble's drugstore. And you could get, it was a small town drugstore, you could get anything in there. You could get his soda fountain, you got ice cream, milkshakes, Cokes, whatever. You could get the candies and all the other stuff, greeting cards, everything you get in a drugstore you would expect except one thing. Couldn't get any drugs there. Prescription drugs, because Mr. Henry was not a licensed pharmacist. But he had 2 brothers in Monroe who ran the drugstore who were licensed pharmacists. And if you went over here to Dr. Daly, you got a prescription, you could take it over here to Mr. Henry Gamble, he'd go to Monroe and get it. Bring you the medicine back. You sure would.
When we've taken prescription, I didn't know that for years. He'd say, well, we'll have it ready in a little bit.
I'll have about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I'll have about 4 o'clock. And I did. It was years before I realized he sent to Monroe and had his brothers
He'd
fill
call
it.
down there and tell Paul.
And they'd bring it, they'd have it down there. They'd somebody go get it. I guess that was just their job. But I never knew that. But now what I do remember about Mr. Henry's, of course, you could go in there and buy comic books for a dime or a nickel or whatever. And they had booze, get one of your fountain drinks and buy your comic book and sit there. I mean,
They had big fans on the
oh
ceiling.
yeah, I mean, that was just a little bit of heaven in there. But there was a little story about Mr. Henry. He could talk warts off. You ever heard of a warts? Well, he could do that, and much to Patsy's embarrassment. But my sister, when she was about 12, had warts on her elbow. And it was so bad that she would wear like a sweater to school, and it was like warm weather because she was so embarrassed. So one day Daddy took her up to Mr. Henry's, the drugstore, and told him about it. And he took my sister Linda back, back over there away from us and everybody. And he talked to her a little bit, and he Linda did say she remembered, he told her, "Do you go home, you know, and just forget about it," and said, "He'll be gone about 2 weeks." Do you know it was? It was. And what embarrassed Patsy is daughter. They went to Charlotte, Mama, Daddy, Patsy, you know, to, what was it, Crest or something used to be up there? Was it Crest?
Yeah, there was a
Something
Crest,
like
there was a
that.
Crest up
All right, there was a woman that checked them out. She had a wart, and of course, Mr. Henry, you know, did his thing and talked and whatever, you know, they have something they say. And Patsy said he wanted to go back about 2 weeks so bad he couldn't stand it, still that wart was gone. But she said people would actually come to the house sometimes to have a wart talked off or something. And she, you know, just embarrassed her to death, I think. I think he embarrassed her.
Now, who was it that could talk fire out of a burn?
Miss Bonnie, Town Hall, her mother could talk fire out of a burn that lived down here on South Spring Street. And we have a friend that when he was a boy, he opened, his car was heating, and he opened the radiator cap, and it, whew, you know, it burning. Somebody said, "Well, you need to go down to," what's Bonnie's mom's name? Miss Bigham?
Gosh.
Anyway, need to go down there and see her. And so he did. He went down there, and she said something, you know, and he said, you know, it went away. I mean, it didn't burn. You know, it talks the burn out. You understand what I'm saying? You know, burn will burn like, you know what? And she talks it out. Well, Jeff, my husband, went over, and he wanted to learn that just to see. He was curious, and she said, well, she couldn't tell. Let's see how it works. You can't tell another woman.
Right, a woman can tell a man, a man can tell a woman.
Something like that. So
same
she
sex can't tell same sex.
All right, she couldn't tell me, but she could tell Jeff. See, Bonnie never knew. Bonnie never knew. So Jeff went over there to see her one day, and he told her he's never told me what she said.
Well, can he do it?
Well, he could try. And then there was someone, we were at the Legion Hut a couple of years ago. Now this is another, something else. Stop bleeding. There are people that can quote certain scripture and stop bleeding. So this is old-timey stuff. Back when people couldn't afford to go to the doctor, outside of that, they were probably miles away. Yes, we had doctors in town, or a doctor, you know, that had their mules and their wagons, and they went on dirt roads and muddy roads. But sometimes it was easier just to go to somebody's house because they could talk the fire out of a burn or you know, person, or stop bleeding. Well, we were out at the Legion Hut, our, you know, usual senior, and the guy's nose started bleeding really bad. And, you know, my husband was with the rescue captain for Lord 30 years, so it's just natural for him to say, Jeff, come back here, you know, this man's having bleeding. So Jeff went back to the bathroom. Well, another man came in, a black gentleman in town, and Jeff said, he stood there and quoted scriptures out of Ezekiel, and we've got it marked, and he quoted it twice. He says, now you go home and it'll be all right after a while. And he went home, and it was. And I called his wife the next day to see how he was doing, and she said, oh, he's fine. I said, he has had to go to the hospital for bleeding, you know, because it won't stop. But she said, no, it stopped. It did stop this time. And but there were people that did that. There were people that did these things. And you know what's interesting? They never charged a dime. It never occurred to them, Melvin, to charge anything. They just did it. And never mind that they came to the house at all hours, you know, for help. They just did. But I don't guess there's anybody that does anything like that now, except the gentleman that helped with the bleeding, you know. But I guess there's a certain, you have to believe, you have to have a belief there.
No, I doubt insurance would cover that.
I doubt seriously. But let's talk about the meal.